link over to our meetup page to where this thing is.
Are you putting another?
Yep. Someone was subscribed to our channel. Dang it, I just killed something. Oh, that's awful.
Never trust high tech.
So yeah, seriously, I thought we were up and running, right?
Yep.
Hit that. It's P. Show file. Send that over here. F11. Sorry, wrong button. No.
Look at it. Time series.
Okay, here we go. So, Kivy. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but this right here is going to be essentially my experience with Kivy. And I'm not quite sure why we keep on losing that, but whatever. I'm David Ernstrom, as many of you guys know. I am glad to be here. Kivy is an application that's used for rapid development of applications that you can push to your cell phone. You can push you can push Kivy applications to iOS devices, to Android devices. You can push Kivy applications to Windows, Raspberry Pi. The cool thing about that is that one set of Python code can push to so many different areas. About me, as you guys know, David Ernstrom. I've been a Python developer since 2006. I grew up in the Davis County area. I moved to Logan in 2001 after a sabbatical to British Columbia. I graduated from USU with a bachelor's in computer science and computer engineering, as well as picked up a master's in business administration. And I've been a Python software engineer for DuPont since 2006. DuPont, as many of you guys know, they're the world leader in photopolymer holography. We are the only ones in the world that can mass produce a hologram that has 2 dimensions of parallax, which means that you can turn the hologram in different directions and see not only the top and the bottom, but the left and the right. So we're very strong in the anti-counterfeiting industry, and we serve customers such as Brother, 3Com, Epson, Cisco, and others. Our in-house production code base is almost exclusively Python, with about 42,000 lines of code, and we are working on making it all PEP 8 compliant, but our PyLint grade is right now 6.14. So we're getting up there. So what is Kivy? Anyone have any experience with Kivy? Yeah.
Tiny bit. It is, as far as I can tell, it's a multi-platform development system from a common code base of Python.
Okay.
You can write it and target multiple distribution points from the same code set.
Yeah, which is very tantalizing, because
Yeah.
you don't want to write in Xcode and also in Java, and right? So that's nice. You say you've had experience?
We built a mobile app for Android device
Uh-huh.
using Kivy platform.
Kivy, okay. And is it pretty successful for you? Is it?
Yeah, we finished yet.
Okay, wonderful. Well, as we said, as Dirk said, Kivy is cross-platform, so you can compile it to cute little Linux Penguin there, and Windows, and Apple, and iOS, and Android, and Raspberry Pi. Yeah.
Is it focused on mobile, or would you actually use it on like a desktop?
So the question was, is Kivy focused mostly on mobile, or would you use it as a desktop application? In my opinion, I think you would use it as a mobile application development, things like an iPad, things like an iPhone, primarily because Kivy is very good at being able to manipulate widgets against different sizes. And so if you've done any mobile development, you realize that just about every resolution causes you to tear your hair out in order to get your application to look nice on it, and Kivy handles all that very elegantly. In fact, it was a great segue into the next slide. Kivy uses native inputs for the device that you're targeting. Most of those items on that list I don't understand, I don't know what they do, but basically the guts of it are that they handle the multi-touch devices. They handle the just the native things that your device does by itself. Kivy's able to hook into those so that it feels natural on the device. Does that answer your question?
So, but you could use it on just your standard.
Oh, absolutely.
desktop.
And I'll demo some of that here in a minute. Yeah, you could use it on your desktop if you want. And it's actually quite elegant. We'll look into some code here in a minute, and I'll show the code both on my desktop as well as I'll pull it out on my phone, and we'll see the exact same code running. And as well, it makes it nice for debugging your code, because you can run it on your desktop and then turn around and push it to your device, and kind of deal with it that way. So it shortens your cycle time. Yeah, Dave.
What type of runtime does it come with? Like, is this one of those systems that's kind of runs it inside a browser without the browser Chrome, or how heavyweight is this? How big's the package?
Kivy itself doesn't seem that big. What gets big is when you start downloading all of the Android SDK. I mean that thing's huge. We're talking. It's like a half an hour download. That in and of itself, just to get that up and running, like a pip install kind of stuff. And so Kivy itself is pretty reasonable, but the overhead on all of that. But you're going to be facing that kind of overhead anyway.
Mm-hmm. And that's not something that's bundled with your app as you publish it.
No.
So like a simple Hello World app with one button that just says you push me. How big would that be?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Don't know. Don't have the background on that.
Okay.
But we can certainly see. One other thing that I think would benefit Dirk. Dirk asked me some questions earlier about if I wanted to put together an app that handles form processing. How does it do that? How well does it do that? One thing that I found as I was researching and learning about Kivy is that there's something called a Kivy garden. And the Kivy garden is essentially all of those developers in the world who who've been unsatisfied with the widgets that come natively bundled in Kivy, and so they build their own widget, inherit from the base class widget, and give something some extra functionality. Well, they deploy it to the Kivy garden, and then you can pip install the Kivy garden and pick up all of these third-party widgets and use those if you want in your library. So that's pretty impressive. All right, so Kivy is business friendly. It's 100% free, licensed under the MIT after 1.7.2 and the LGPL3 prior to 1.7.2. So you can use it on a commercial product without having to deal with licensing nightmares. It's professionally developed, backed, and used. The framework is well documented. And there's some fantastic tutorials on their website. Their documentation is very nice with some really good samples on, okay, well, how do I do an app that does this type of a thing? And they'll give some code samples on how to do that kind of thing. The other thing that was very impressive to me is that they follow PEP 8. As you guys know, I'm kind of a big PEP 8 Nazi, and so push hard for good, solid, clean, well-written code. And from what I've seen on Kivy and from what I've seen on their instructions, all of their sample code, it's all PEP 8 compliant. They also use GPU acceleration, so they have a fast graphics pipeline. So if you're going to be doing graphics processing in your application, they have done a very good job at being able to handle that. You can even do things like double buffering and stuff like that in order to be able to write to a back buffer and then swap buffers on your own if you're pretty graphics intensive in your application. Many parts are written in C using Python, tested with regression tests. So you know that right there that they're pretty stable. This is just about as simple of an application as you can get. This is straight from their website. A couple things to note on this. The first one is that the very, very base class there inherits from app. And any application that you do with Kivy, you will create a class that inherits from app, and that app will be your entry point into the the application that you're building. The other thing to recognize is that this build method returns a widget. Now Kivy has put together their infrastructure in such a way that a build method returns a base widget, and all of the widgets in Kivy go together using a hierarchical pattern. Now this app is extremely simple. It's a button. It doesn't need to hold any other widgets. There's no sizers. There's no nothing like that. So what do you think we'd get when we ran this app? Anyone want to venture to guess?
One full screen button.
A full screen button. And what's the text on the button?
Hello world.
Hello world. So right here, I have two screenshots of it. This is what it looks like before you click it, and this is what it looks like while you're clicking it. So I mean, just extremely simple, full screen button, no bells, whistles, but I mean, that's pretty good for 6 lines of code there. And actually, I'm going to say here, looking at this code, I find it very impressive that they're handling, that they have default handlers for on close, for the default button widget. I mean, it changes it in a nice, elegant, pretty, what is that, blue kind of, they've titled the box using the name of my class, test app, and if you notice up here, the app is called test. So there's some reasonable defaults that they've picked, but to get a functioning application that can be pushed to any of your handheld devices, and that the 6 lines of code is pretty impressive to me. Here's one thing that I'm hoping you guys can take a chance to explore in the Google Play environment. There is an app called the Kivy Showcase. It's an app you can install on your device, and they demo all of the native widgets that come bundled with Kivy. So you can see what their inbox or their text boxes look like, or you can see what their accordion widgets look like. You can see what their scroll bars and their progress bars look like. And for some reason, fantastic. There we go. So the next thing that I ran into as I was learning about Kivy, I remembered when I went to PyCon, what was it? PyCon 2015. I remember I didn't go to 2015, but I saw on the website that somebody was presenting a tutorial on Kivy, and in this tutorial, they actually focused on game development. The tutorial link is right there, and it's like a 3-hour in-depth tutorial on how to program this game called Flappy Bird. So I watched the tutorial and I went through it and I learned how to program Flappy Bird. We'll look at some code here in a minute, but I do want to demo what Flappy Bird looks like just as a Kivy app. So here's Flappy Bird. There's obviously some things that we could do better, as far as window sizing, but tap to start. And here's my.
Can you do better than that?
I can sometimes get him through. Come on. Oh man. There we go. See that? Oh. And just to show you guys, I installed Flappy Bird on my phone. I thought I had installed Flappy Bird on my phone. Seriously, I had it right here. I called it My Application. Turn the media up so you guys can hear the sounds.
And just Kivy do the sound as well?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So. See, and I suck too.
How many levels is there?
It just keeps going. All the code's there.
Well,
You can make it easier for you, Chris.
let's go a little wider.
No, let's look at the code real fast though. I'll exit this one, and I will drag over, or maybe it's already over there. So here's some Kivy code. This is Flappy, and this is, like I said, just straight from that YouTube tutorial. One thing to note here is that they have established a convention right after you import Kivy to do a Kivy.require. This makes sure that the version of Kivy that you're developing against matches what you expect, so that if you're going to compile this on a different machine, that it would run properly. They're importing a bunch of widgets here. You were asking about sound. This right here is how you load a WAV file in Kivy, and then you store that as an instance. They actually created a base class called Sprite, inherits from image. We won't really go into some of these details, but the guy that put together this Flappy Bird clone put together a very, very solid class hierarchy for his objects that move around on the screen. He inherited all of them from Sprite, and then Sprite inherited from image. And one of the things he did is he gave them all an update class. The benefit of that is then every time the infrastructure would call update, then each thing on your screen, whether it's the bird or the pipes or the background, they would have a chance to move themselves around the screen. And so, for instance, the bird is affected by gravity, obviously. If the velocity is less than a certain factor there, then you're going to change the texture to have the wing up, and if it's, and kind of give that flying motion, So I mean, they did a pretty good job here. I was pretty impressed. On touchdown, so the on touchdown is if you touch the device, if you click it with your mouse, it's going to change the texture to wing down. It's going to increase the velocity, and it's going to play the sound effect of flapping. Wow. Right? And so again, this is a background. It inherits from widget. This is the ground. It inherits from Sprite. The pipe is a widget. These pipes are a collection of widgets, so basically keeping track of all the pipes on the screen. at a time, and then disposing them when you're done with them. I'm going to keep scrolling down here, show you the key code here. Right here, here's Flappy app, okay? And I can even go down a little bit further. If name equals main Flappy app run, and then you can see here's Flappy app. There is just a simple build method. They initialize some params. They're essentially just setting some global variables. They are creating a top widget just using the base widget class. They are adding the menu to that top widget, and then they're returning the top widget. So again, remember how I said Kivy is all about a hierarchy of widgets? Well, this first widget is empty. It's essentially a container, and they've added a child widget called menu. So then if we come up here on menu, we can see that the menu has a child widget called, that's a sprite. It's this background. There's another child widget called ground, ground.png. There is a label that's just the tap to start, and there's a blank screen over the whole thing. I suspect that's what that is. But then they've locked into the on touchdown handler, and if on touchdown, so if on touchdown is called because you've touched it, it grabs a hold of the parent widget, which is this base widget right here that we had here, gets its parent, it removes itself from the parent, and it adds the game to the parent. So logically what's going to happen is it's going to instantiate game right here, and here's game.
On your PC, clicking the mouse was touch.
Absolutely, yep. And that's what's remarkable about Kivy is on my PC it made sense to click. That's the equivalent, right? And I guarantee if there was a touch screen, I could have touched my screen and it would have just worked. Because I've been very impressed as I've explored Kivy for those very same things. So anyway, the way that they built this Flappy Bird was to me pretty impressive, but also how it seamlessly just kind of worked with Kivy is pretty impressive. So I'm not going to go through more code than that, so much as you can kind of see that game is just a widget. It got swapped out with menu, and you can hook into the update calls. You can hook into the on touchdown calls. Looks like they're binding it here. That's why it's this underscore beginning. But they've bound that touch handler if the game's over. That's what that call is. Any questions kind of on just some of that code we looked at?
On the code note, I have an overall question.
Okay, fire.
So is Kivy more of a framework like Flask and Django, or is it more of a library? That you just call in that
It's more like
Flask
Django.
would call.
It's
it's a
very
framework.
much
It's
like
a framework.
It's very much a framework. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's more than just framework, because it's also a collection of tool chains that allows you to target multiple platforms. So that you can take and, if you're a Linux developer, you can from that platform target Android devices.
So if you're going to build a web application from scratch, you might start with Kivy,
Now,
Kivy's not a web application at all.
but it's a framework you'd start with as if you would start with Flask from scratch.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Yeah. So Flask might help you build a web application,
Yeah.
where this might help you build an Android application.
Okay.
Right.
it works very well
this would
as a
also be a-
client application.
Mhm.
Yeah, this could be a client application too. So if someone were going to build a new project, if they wanted to skip all the hassle of making sure it works on all the handheld devices and the PC browser, they could start with Kivy
Remove the browser part
Oh,
from the PC.
Yeah.
and a browser.
PC laptop.
No, like installed on the machine.
Oh, this installs.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It is
It's an application.
actual
So it's not a
application
web
code.
application.
No.
It's an application. Oh, okay.
Actual application code. Yep. So I mean, you notice when I ran the sample code, I mean on my screen I'm double clicking on flappy.py, and I get a program. There's no
Oh, I
web
see, I
browser
see.
here. This is straight up real application. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Do you know on the desktop side of it, is it using WX behind it for that?
I'm pretty sure it's not.
It's not, it's its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they target the native code for each of the platforms you're writing to.
There we go. All right.
What-
So, yeah, Chris.
What are some similar things to Kivy, and is Kivy superior?
Well, WX Python is similar, and Tincter. I don't know how you say it. TKINCKTER. I don't know. Tinker is also very similar. They're application building frameworks. Neither one of those, however, will let you push code onto an iOS device or an Android device. So if you're going to push it into iOS, you're writing in Xcode. If you're pushing something onto Android, you're writing it in Java. There just isn't anything out there in Python that will let you push to a mobile device, except for Kivy.
Could Kivy be used as a portable point of sales, for example?
Sure.
So it would have the connectivity back to the back end,
Well,
to
you'd
your
have to write that.
database or to whatever. You'd have to
Of your-
develop that.
Oh yeah.
It has
Yeah,
the
you could.
capability to
Mhm.
develop.
Yeah, just like anything else you'd install on your device. So here's another example. Actually, well, let's talk about this first. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of loose coupling design. I don't believe that your HTML code, for instance, belongs inside your Python. And you know, you have a lot of languages out there that are horrendous at that. PHP is notorious for folks trying to put their HTML right inside their PHP code. Kivy is fabulous at what they call they're KV files. I don't know if they have a title for it. The idea being that you can deal with all of your user interface design in a separate file and all of your Python logic in a .py file. And let me give an example for that. But what it does is it leaves your Python code to do logic. Right here, I took this is actually from their demo website. Kivy. Kivy implicitly searches for a .kv file that's name is derived from the name of your class that inherits from app. So in this case, they're going to look for a KV file called test.kv. And that test.kv is going to contain a hierarchy of widgets. That hierarchy of widgets can then drop out of your Python code and be put together entirely in your KV file. That hierarchy of widgets then allows you to specify parameters that are unique to the widget itself. Things like this button, what the text is. You might be able to specify what method to call when the button is clicked. It's like the on-click handler. You could specify when that thing's clicked, call this method. You can some
Okay, so I'm going crazy here. I see a completely empty class, and that's actually running a program.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Except that, you don't see a completely empty class because that is inheriting from app.
Right.
An app contains all of the
All the other
base
stuff.
code logic to make it do everything it needs to do. But again, not very many lines of code to get something up on your screen that says hello from test.kv.
So some of the things you can specify in your .kv file include how the various components behave under a resize condition,
Mm-hmm.
and how they should flow in the various orientations and resizing.
So, and we've got an example of that right here, actually. So let me pop over to this one. This is a camera example. So again, this is straight from their help docs. But right here at the top, I have something called test camera. It inherits from app, and it doesn't do a lick. But the .kv file, first let me ask this question: what's it named?
Should be
Test camera.
Remember, everything else, or the other example we had app here at the end. It was called test app, and so they looked for something called test.kv.
So I think
So
this one's
camera.kv?
test camera.
Test camera. It's going to look for something called test camera.kv. And so if app is there, it takes it off. If it's not there, it just looks for that. So this .kv file would be called test camera.kv, and in there is a box layout that has an orientation set to vertical. So if you're familiar with widget design, the concept here is that you're going to stack a whole bunch of widgets vertically in this type of layout. And this widget, notice the indentation here. This camera widget is a child of box widget. This toggle button is also a child of box layout. And the camera widget has an ID of camera, has a resolution of 640 by 480, and play is set to false. On the toggle button that's immediately below camera, the text is play. On press, this is the event binding. Your very, very simple logic, camera.play equals not camera.play. Size hint y is set to none, and height is 48 dp. I don't know what dp is, I didn't research that much. But executing this code gets you something like this, and what happens when you click play, do you think?
The camera goes live.
The camera goes live, right? Because then it executes this code, camera.play, which is this parameter, it's defaulting to false, equals not camera.play. So not false goes to true, and camera.play, or the member variable of camera called play, goes to true. And suddenly you have frame grabber, essentially. That's cool, come on, that's awesome.
Oh, it is awesome.
That is very, very awesome.
More so you hook into the
And that
camera.
picture looks like it's being
Yes.
run on Apple.
Yes.
And that's all the code it takes.
That is all the code, and it hooks into that. Now, if the camera doesn't exist, it'll crash. So if you don't have a camera on your laptop and you run this code, it'll crash.
And if you have two cameras, does it just? do
It'll
both?
pick the whatever one's default,
Mhm.
system default. And you can get into the Kivy docs and figure out how to specify
The front or the back?
front or the back, that kind of stuff. Yep. So pretty mind-blowingly cool in my opinion. Yep. So I have an Android phone, and so the next question that I asked is, how in the world do I go from the Kivy app running on my Windows box to my Android app? Yes, sir.
I actually want you to go back a couple,
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind. Previous? Down that
How
way.
far?
Okay, this far. Okay, how would you pass something to hello as a variable to test?
To
that
text?
Yeah, to test
Okay.
KV.
Okay. Let's see. Do I have an example that shows that?
I mean, I would
Essentially.
assume that it would be right there under
Okay.
the test app pass.
Essentially, what it
specify something there.
boils down to is it has to be defined up here
Right?
as a class.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be like class, I don't know, button, or,
Mhm.
or class my button or something like that inherits from button.
Okay.
And then down here, you could, I believe it's parentheses. You wrap it in parentheses, and that basically says it's defined elsewhere.
Okay.
But you put parentheses around it, and then you call it my button. And then the two pieces link together in such a way that it just magically works. I don't think I have a code example that shows that.
If you get one, just throw it in there if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
At some point.
Any other questions? Okay. Let's see, did that one do it? Nope, that didn't.
I was looking for that.
Okay. So when I went to package for Android, I found out that there were two options. There's this Kivy launcher. What Kivy launcher is it allows you to compile your little application onto your SD card, cram it into your phone, or download it off the web onto your phone, and then you launch the Kivy launcher, and then it says, okay, well, what file do you want to execute? And then you find it on your phone's operating system. You navigate to it and you hit OK, and then it launches it. That's kind of the quick and dirty way of making it happen.
Typically used for debugging or something.
Yeah, it's debugging if you just need to get something out there fast for somebody to do. But the more better approach, in my opinion, is obviously compiling it directly. If you're on an Android device, you're going to use Python for Android. You can pip install that. If you're going to iOS, you can use Kivy iOS. And I don't know anything about Kivy iOS other than that's what you use to get it onto an iOS device. Python for Android, well, actually both of these options don't run on Windows. So that would kind of put me into a little pickle. I did learn about Buildozer. Buildozer automates the entire build process. Essentially, it downloads and sets up the prerequisites for Python for Android. It downloads and sets up the Android SDK and the NDK, and it builds an APK, so any application that is an Android app has to be compiled into an APK that can then be deployed or uploaded into the Play Store. So what I actually stumbled into was an application called VirtualBox. Is anyone familiar with VirtualBox? Okay. I'd never heard of it. I'm kind of a VMware guy. But VirtualBox is essentially a virtual operating system. And Kivy VM is a VM that you can download that contains everything all ready to go for you. So I downloaded VirtualBox, installed it on my machine, downloaded the Kivy VM, and with a couple of gotchas was able to push Flappy Bird and a couple other test applications to my phone, and was pretty successful there. I have a slide here that shows the gotchas that I ran into. The first one is that because I'm running on a Windows platform, in order to pass the USB signal from my Android device, I had to install the Google USB drivers on Windows.
Right, because it's reaching through an extra level of
That's
complexity.
right. Yep.
Out of the VM into your Windows, into your Android.
Yes. So if you're already on a Linux device, you wouldn't have to screw with that kind of a thing. The other thing I had to do was tell my device to accept apps that were not pushed from the Play Store, which kind of makes sense. Another thing that I had to do, which was kind of fun, is I had to unlock my device. So that should say device for development, and deep buried in the settings dialogues of my phone, eventually you can get to a little field that's called build number, and it tells you what build number your operating system is. If you click on that build number 7 times, actually if you click about twice or 3 times, it says just 4 more times and you will be a developer. And you click it again, and it says 3 more times and you'll be a developer. And you just keep clicking on that button 7 times, and all of a sudden your phone is unlocked into development mode, and you're like this developer, right? Which then gives you a whole bunch of fun settings, like I can tell my phone not to lock the screen when it's hooked up to a USB cable.
It's got to be specific for your phone, though, right?
Some of those settings, yeah. But that's
like
an Android
build
thing.
number.
That's an Android thing. Yeah, get into it. One thing to be aware of: some Android versions do not let you undo that.
Doesn't work on mine at all.
Well,
Mine worked.
Did it really? Awesome.
I'm a developer.
You're a developer. Yee. The other thing that I ran into is I had to enable ADB, Android debugging, I think, within my device to tell my device, hey, it's okay to send out this debugging information over the USB cable. And then another command that I found very successful was this ADB devices, and I could type that into my VirtualBox, and it would list all of the devices that were connected to the VirtualBox, and it helped me diagnose basically getting it through the VirtualBox into in and out of the phone. So those were a couple of gotchas I ran into. But other than that, I mean, like I say, Kivy's a great application, great framework, and I was very impressed at how well it promotes loose coupling design and can push to multiple platforms. Any other questions?
So if you have an app and you put it to Android and iOS, do they look exactly the same, or do they look Android-ishy, Apple-ishy?
My assessment is that they look native to the platform that they're compiled and running on, just from what I've seen. Now, in my opinion, any wonderful app that you're going to use on your phone is going to have some art guy develop background imagery and and widgets that are all going to be stylized to however your app looks. And so with that regard, they're going to look exactly the same, because you're going to have your own custom button that inherits from widget. You're going to have your own custom background and your own custom. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But as far as the native controls, my assessment is that they look native to the device. Any other questions? All right.
So how big are those APKs?
I don't know. Let's open it up and check.
Yeah.
After.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I was going to comment on your Kivy showcase. It shows you the code for all the samples.
It does.
That's pretty cool.
It does. All right. Well, thanks, guys.